We're here today to talk a little bit about the current project we've just finished up. And the subject is interesting. It is the prediction of the upcoming US election.
This person has got disaster following, bad things. This person's trying to climb up out of this rock hard place, and this stuff is like right at his heels, trying to follow him out. This person's involved in a process of trying to get in and out of this rock and hard place, but this process isn't finished.
This episode looks one last time at the US presidential election of 2024. You'll get postulates and you'll get conclusions. You can count on it. We have three professionally trained remote viewers from Intuitive Underground: Dan Mann, Morgan Farrell, and Jeff Coley. Take it away, guys.
Yep, appreciate it. Good to be here. So, for some of those who might be kind of curious about who we are and where we come from, we all kind of got together about 2012 on a web forum for remote viewers. Initially, Jeff and I had gotten together for a little bit. I think within a project or two, if that. Morgan was there, and another fella by the name of Michael was there, and we all kind of got together and just started running projects together, and really wanted to ask a large questions about what is this that we're living in. Sure, remote viewing has its advantages for, day-to-day life, things I should do, where should I go? We really started asking a lot of these large questions, and we started getting some answers in what Ingo Swann would call an 8 martini response. For about 4 to 6 years, we'd been working together, getting some of these questions answered, and I wouldn't say our minds blown apart, but definitely our idea of what the world is that we're living in got changed quite a bit several times over and over. And we felt that the information that we did have, that we wanted to make sure that we figured out some way of getting the information out and at least making it available for those who would search for that type of information. So we got together in 2015, somewhere in that neighborhood. We started a group. We published a website called The State of Reality. I believe the URL was just stateofreality.com. You can find it on the Wayback Machine at the Internet Archive, which I believe is archive.org. Some of these articles that we did post from 2016 about the next president, when we actually did predict Trump by about 6 or 7 months, that can be found out there. And if it's not, I'm sure we could figure out some way of getting it to people who would want a copy of it. And, the groups kind of changed from time to time. People got other things to do with their lives. They disappear and come back. Some don't come back at all. But generally, this Intuitive Underground undertaking is State of Reality 2.0, essentially. Another spot for us to drop this information. The information is out there.
We're here today to talk a little bit about the current project we've just finished up. And the subject is interesting. It is the prediction of the upcoming US election. So this team actually has a kind of an interesting history with Donald Trump and his presidency. Kind of started back in 2015 and then again in early 2016. We were actually tasked with predicting the outcome of that current election cycle, which we did successfully at actually a very early date, at which Trump's candidacy, let alone presidency, was widely considered a joke, including by members of our team.
Yeah.
But he went on to win, and he's proved at the very least to be a far more interesting character than I ever would have given him credit for. And as such, over the years, we've done a few additional projects on him just as a person, who he is, what he's all about, and we might get into a little bit of that later on. But right now, we're going to focus on our current project, which, as I said, is a prediction of this upcoming election. And maybe I've already given away the results, but the winner is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know a lot of people probably don't like to hear that. I'm sure there's a lot of people that do. But really, when it comes down to the remote viewing and the data that we get, it's pretty much just the facts. And, I don't want to call it fact. There's a lot of time between now and then. There are things that can happen. We've got two wars. We've got nameless folks from the shadows, it seems like, that are really just kind of lashing them at any chance that they can get, try to get them to stop, try to get them to go away. And true to form, the guy just keeps coming back.
And to be clear, the Project Q was next U.S. president, correct? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. The exact target that the remote viewing team was tasked with was next president of the United States.
Which is assuming there's going to be another election when and if that happens. We think we know when that happens. But, like you said, a lot of things develop between now and then. This is a future prediction. In remote viewing, future predictions are always a little dicey. It depends on when you perform the session, how close to the event in time that the session is performed will depend. Your results depend on that. Like you said, we did the Donald Trump or the prediction of the 2016 election, and we did that, if I remember right, it was about 9 months before the actual election, and Trump was not the official candidate yet.
Yeah, he was not the nominee at the time. In fact, I think
Yeah.
at that time he had maybe one debate. Yeah,
Right.
they were still joking. They were still cracking jokes at his expense.
At that time, I think the only one was like Ann Coulter that, said
right.
publicly on TV that she thought Trump had the best chance, and she was immediately laughed at. And
Yeah, on television, if I remember correctly. Yep. The polls are not exactly reporting the full truth either. But at this point, it's some naysayers might come out and say, hey, it's already a foregone conclusion at this point. You're not really predicting anything, but we're really just here to, kind of talk about the session work and talk about what we got for the most part. My opinion, I think, although not all data is 100% corroborated, we've been taught this through our training. And for those of you who don't know, the majority of us here trained under TRV or technical remote viewing, or at the time it was called Learn Remote Viewing, Ed Dames' product. It's a derivative of controlled remote viewing or coordinated remote viewing. We were always told by Ed that mostly you could always rely upon data that two remote viewers, professionally trained remote viewers, whenever they say the same thing, it's usually approaching 100% accuracy. Ed would always teach us that if you have two professionally trained remote viewers, that if they were to get the same data point or the same idea, roughly that data would approaching 100%. Now, some other people may have questioned this in the past. I know that I've been questioned on it a couple of times, but just that's what we've always been taught. In this particular project, in generalities, not generalities, but the general feel of the session across the board, I think it's a man. It's a man that's going through some strife, who's dealing with some stuff and seems to be under pressure. The person seems to be almost in an impossible situation. And this person is rising to the call or rising to the event. I think.
I should maybe interject here, just, in case there's anyone listening that doesn't really understand what remote viewing is. So when you hear someone say, we remote view the outcome of an election, if you're thinking that means, we just close our eyes and then we just see a picture or a video of whoever the next president is, that's not at all how it works. So the way the remote viewing works is you use a systematic method in order to kind of access your unconscious mind and tap into your natural intuitive or psychic abilities. in order to gather a series of impressions or perceptions about a given target, a person, a place, a thing, an event, in the future, in the past. That doesn't matter so much. What matters is that you have a solid kind of a standard operating procedure, and that's exactly what we do. And so what happens in a remote viewing session is in this case, for example, I task these guys. I just tell them, I say, hey, I have a target I want you to remote view. Here's the project number. And I give that project number to them, and they know, okay, well, now I'm just going to write this project number down, and I'm going to work through the procedures that I'm familiar with. And along that way, that is going to result in recording a series of impressions. Sometimes those are kind of loose, seemingly disjointed concepts, intangibles. Sometimes it's kind of a distorted visual. It's a series of sometimes seemingly unrelated impressions that you just record kind of in real time, and you actually, after the fact, you go back and you kind of piece it all together, and you see what does that mean in relation to the intended target. With that in mind, maybe we'll run through a little bit of the session work and kind of explain some of the perceptions that the viewers came up with. And I think at that point, you'll begin to see why everyone, as soon as they understood what the actual target was immediately on the same page and saying, yes, the answer is Trump is going to win. Maybe Dan, do you want to just run through, I mean, you kind of touched on it already, but do you want to maybe run through some of the impressions you got from your remote viewing session?
Generally in technical remote viewing versus controlled remote viewing, we actually have a little bit of an advantage, and is kind of designed to be that way, where in which we break down the information into, I guess, digestible aspects of it. And that by the end of it, you combine all of it together into what we call a site template or an idea template. And generally, you have all your visual information, and you have your written information, data points. They're all on one page, and they're very relatively easy to just take a look at the page, get the general idea. Sure, you could probably infer more information from what you get, but generally the answer is on one page, and you can kind of go through it. And in my particular session, there was a person who seemed to be in this confined area. It's the grand overarching idea. And this person is kind of like moving around in slow circles for some reason. And then it gets a little bit more specific in the other part of the site template. I haven't really declared man or woman at that point, but generally the context surrounding this person is more than enough to really determine whether it's Kamala or whether it's Trump. This person is basically in a rock and a hard place, so like down deep in this trench. The same person has a difficulty climbing out of the situation. This person seems ready to move on, but the circumstances of that situation does not allow them to get up and get out. It's almost as if it was like a jail sentence and someone's paying their dues. In technical remote viewing, we get this one page, then we can actually target another part inside of this idea or gestalt of ideas to explore it further. And when we explore it further on, come to find out that this person has disaster following them. Now, I'm not really 100% on what that might mean, but to be honest, looking at his situation, ultimately there's disaster following him around, whether it's court cases, whether it's, civil lawsuits for supposed rapes back in the 1980s and all these other things that seem to be following around, whether it's, civilly, they're taxing his money, they're taxing his background, they're taxing his business. This person has got disaster following, bad things. This person's trying to climb up out of this rock hard place, and this stuff is like right at his heels trying to follow him out. This person's involved in a process of trying to get in and out of this rock and hard place, but this process isn't finished.